Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 254. It's our Week 17 NFL picks, Christmas special with Jacob Camenker for NBC Sports Boston. Jacob, how are you? And Merry Christmas.
I'm good. Merry Christmas to you too. Hope you're doing well. I've got my Santa hat on today that I did not have in my possession until earlier today. This is a happy accident. My brother brought it, so I'm wearing it tonight. We're going to be festive. We're going to make some Christmas-themed picks. Not really, but we're going to pretend that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. I wish I had a Santa hat. I was thinking about that actually. I was like, oh, I'll wear a Santa hat, but then I realized I don't have one. But at least you're in the festive celebration wearing that costume. So how was your Week 16 before we get into this week's games?
I finally bounced back. I went 9-6-1 against the spread. I hit on my biggest pick of the week. I had Cardinals +8 against the Seahawks. They won outright, so that was great. There's one game I feel like I really screwed up on. That was Colts Panthers. I was on Panthers +7.5, and I looked back at my notes, and I took a look at what I had written. It was basically like, hey, look at all of these reasons to pick the Colts in this game. And then my last note was like, this line is slightly too high. And it's like, no, the Panthers are terrible. They're not playing for any reason. The Colts are at least hungry to perform better, and Frank Reich's coming back. So that was my one big mistake. But overall, I'll take a positive week after like 3 weeks of double-digit losses.
Yeah, I was right there with you with that loss. I had the Panthers for 4 units. And I don't know if we had like the wrong side. I mean, there were 3 punt returns for touchdowns, basically, like 2 real touchdowns and one that went back to like around the red zone. So like if you look at the final stats, like the Colts didn't really outgain the Panthers by that much. It's because they scored 21 points in special teams. So that was pretty frustrating. And then DJ Moore got hurt on the second drive. So that kind of affected that for the Panthers. But Will Grier didn't look very good. So maybe the Panthers still wouldn't have covered, but yeah, that was my biggest loss as well. I went 11-4-1, so it was a nice week, plus over 1,000. So definitely happy with that result. So hopefully we can keep it going for Week 17. I think this is traditionally a good week for me. I've done well in Week 17s in the past. It's a different week. I don't consider this part of the regular season. It's kind of like halfway into the playoffs where there are like pseudo playoff games going on. And then on the other end of the spectrum, some teams might even quit. So it's pretty different, but I'm excited to get into these games. Before we do, what do you think about the card? Do you like it?
Yeah, I do like it. I think there's some motivational edges we can take advantage of with, like you said, teams that are going to quit. Some teams that are playing for playoff spots, or in the case of the Raiders, like the Raiders may be able to play for a playoff spot, may not. So in the lead up to that, depending on how the Titans game is going and the Steelers game is going, we'll be able to kind of guess how they're going to come out. So there's a lot we can tap into this week. I feel like we're going to be pretty confident in some of these games.
Yeah, I agree. Andrew's asking why the Raiders have to have everything go right and then lose to the Broncos. Should I just tie the noose right now? Well, I mean, you have to like the other stuff has to happen first. Like the Titans have to lose. So the scenario goes like if the Raiders can get into the playoffs if they win, and the Titans lose and the Steelers lose. So I mean, it is possible, but you have to have a lot of things right. So maybe you want to not get that noose ready yet. All right, let's kick things off with the first game. Browns at the Bengals. This line opened up. Browns -3. It's still 3 or -2.5 with heavy juice. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Bengals. A lot of people seem to be into the Browns in this game, and I just really can't see why. They're road favorites against a Bengals team that's been better than advertised lately. We talk about Cordy Glenn on this podcast every week. Since he's come back, they've been much better blocking, and they had a ridiculous comeback last week against the Dolphins, fall just short in overtime. But the fact that they even got it to overtime was a testament to them because they were down like 22 in the third quarter. So I don't see why the Browns would be favored. They don't seem to like Freddie Kitchens much, the players that is, yet he may be coming back next year. Maybe if they think they play bad enough, that will make the team consider firing him. I don't know. Maybe that's my motivational angle for this game. And I know they played pretty well last week in the first half against the Ravens, but then things kind of fell apart right before the half. And, in the second half, things got much worse. But the last time they played the Bengals had it within 1 point, I think, at the half. I think it was like 14-13 at halftime. And then the Browns pulled away a little bit to get like a 7 or 8 point win. But I think the Bengals are a better team now than they were then. I think they'll compete with the Browns, and the Browns know they have nothing to play for. And like nothing they do changes what happens with them. Nothing they do changes what happens with the Bengals. They're already the number 1 pick. So I think the Bengals are going to come out motivated just to try to get a second win. The Browns are going to fall flat. So I like the Bengals in this one. I'm not going to bet a ton on this one. If we're getting +3, I'll consider 2 units. So I'm probably going to be on this for 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'll definitely bet up to +3 if you can. I think you have to do that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I like the Bengals, not a lot though, because while I think there's a better chance that they're going to try hard in this game, I also think that there's a chance that they're sitting there at 1-14 and they're thinking, all right, let's just get on these planes and go to some island and just hang out there for a month on vacation. So they might be thinking about that too. So like that's kind of the pitfall you have in these Week 17 games, where I've seen it in the past over the 20 years I've been making degenerate gambler picks on the site. Like I've seen just some teams like I think are like, all right, they're going to show up in Week 17 and they're just complete no-shows. So like the Bengals could do that. Like they could just not show up. But I think you're right in saying that there's a better chance that the Browns will quit because Freddie Kitchens is just not inspiring any confidence. I think there's a chance he could be fired too. And something I like to do in Week 17 is fade teams that are going to fire their head coaches. Unfortunately, we've seen no news on this. Like we don't know if Kitchens is going to be fired, but if a report comes out later in the week that says Kitchens will be fired, usually like Schefter has something like that, or Chris Mortensen, I think that I will be betting more on the Bengals, but right now it's going to be like a 1 or 2 unit pick. And you mentioned that previous matchup between these two teams. The Bengals outgained the Browns by 120 yards in that game. Like it was legit too. It wasn't garbage time. So I think these teams are closer, and I don't think the Browns should be favored by 3 on the road.
Yeah, definitely. I saw this as more of maybe you could convince me it could be as low as a pick 'em in this game. So I just think the Bengals are the right side, but that what you said about them possibly wanting to get on the planes and go to that island, like, I could absolutely see that happening too, because, that's a big time lost season for them. But, where they have kind of something to play for in pride, I feel like they're worth a shot.
Yeah, and I think Zach Taylor will be back next year, so they have that to play for as well. Christian asks, will Odell Beckham be heading to Jacob's Patriots next season? What do you think?
I hope so. That would be really nice. Their receivers are not very good right now. They're getting better though. N'Keal Harry's playing better. I think he's going to be a good pro. Edelman's just kind of getting old. But at the moment, I don't think Beckham would leave Cleveland, at least not in the offseason. He may be like a deadline trade guy if Freddie Kitchens sticks around and they still can't figure out how to use him. But the Patriots would be the type of team that would swing and deal for Beckham if he becomes available. So I'm not sure the Browns would want to trade with the Patriots, though, if they think that they're going to compete for a playoff spot in the AFC. But we'll see what happens. You never know with Bill Belichick. He can pull off a lot of different things.
That's true. I almost want to say that the Browns will not make a deal with the Patriots just because they don't want to make the Patriots better. But then again, they are the Browns. So it could definitely happen. All right. Next game, Bears at the Vikings. This line opened up Vikings -7. Down to 1. 7 was kind of like a mirage. It wasn't really available for that long. So this 1 came out after the Vikings lost because the Vikings are locked into the 6th seed in the NFC. So we don't know if the starters are going to sit yet. But who do you like in this game?
I like the Vikings, and even if the starters don't sit, I can't imagine a reason Dalvin Cook would play in this game and risk further injury ahead of the playoffs if his shoulder's not 100%. So for that reason alone, or no, I like the Bears. Did I say I like the Vikings? I bet I like the Bears. Yeah, okay, I knew what I meant. But the Vikings have nothing to really play for in this one. I think they will rest their starters. They may throw Kirk Cousins out there and be like, hey, you did not play well last game on Monday night, so let's build a little bit of a rhythm getting into the playoffs. But once they throw like Sean Mannion out there and Mike Boone, and I doubt Adam Thielen will play if he's banged up. And Stephon Diggs may not play either. I can't imagine them moving the ball much on the Bears defense. And again, the Bears, they're in a situation where they don't benefit much by winning or losing this game. But Matt Nagy is going to be coming back next year. They just kind of laid an egg on national television against the Chiefs. Their offense did not move the ball at all. And really, they just got to see what they can do heading into the offseason, because if Trubisky has another terrible game, then they got to start thinking about signing a veteran quarterback to possibly compete with him. So I think we're going to see the Bears come out and at least, try to operate a full game plan. I don't know if their offense is going to work out, but I still like them in this one because in the matchup or the potential matchup of Mitch Trubisky and Sean Mannion, I will be on Mitch Trubisky. And also earlier in the season, the Bears defense limited Kirk Cousins' Vikings to 6 points. So I know their defense isn't as strong as it was that week, but, they can still get the job done, especially if Mannion ends up playing.
Yeah, they lost Akeem Hicks. Not that they had Hicks in that game anyway, but they lost Hicks last week to an injury. And also, what's his name? They lost Eddie Goldman to an injury as well against Kansas City. So we don't know if they're going to play. And not having those two guys, it would, under normal circumstances, would make things very difficult for the Bears defense to stop the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, I think you might be right. Like, I could see Mike Zimmer putting Kirk Cousins out there for one drive and be like, score a touchdown now, and or you'd be like, you can sit until you score a point. Like, if he leads a field goal drive, like, that's it for him. Like, I could see something like that happening, but I could also see Sean Mannion starting too. And Mannion is just an awful quarterback. I don't know why they chose him over Kyle Sloter. I thought Sloter was awesome in the preseason. Made some nice money on Sloter in the preseason betting, as as a degenerate gambler is wont to do, I guess. But Mannion against his Bears defense just spells trouble. So I'm going to be on the Bears with you. The problem is, again, like, the Bears could just not show up at all. Like, it's true that Matt Nagy is coming back next year, but the Bears had high hopes coming into the season, and then they were eliminated from the playoffs. And then they tried hard last week against the Chiefs. They hung around for a while, but then they eventually just lost pretty badly. And I think, like, coming off a loss like that, like a disheartening loss where they tried hard and they got blown out, like, it's going to be hard for them to just muster enough energy to against a Viking team that's going to be starting backups. But yeah, I mean, I would still go with Chicago's starters over Minnesota's backups. I just don't know if the motivation will be there.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not going to bet heavily, if at all, on this game. I'm probably going to put a unit down on the Bears, maybe two, if you can convince me that the Vikings aren't going to play their starters for the whole game. But yeah, no, the Bears profile as a team that definitely could come out and lay an egg. I like to have more faith in Matt Nagy, because last year we were all talking about him being like one of the next great offensive coaches. But, it can be hard to motivate guys in Week 17. Like you said with the Bengals, the Bears could just want to get on a plane and get out of Chicago, especially with it getting cold.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. It'd be nice to get out of Chicago and go to, like, the Bahamas or something, or whatever. All right, next game is the Falcons at the Buccaneers. This line opened up Buccaneers -2.5, down to 1.5. Looks like a decent amount of public action on the Falcons. Not a crazy amount though. So who do you look in this game?
I like the Buccaneers. I mean, they've been playing really well lately. They're playing some of their best football. Bruce Arians is coaching well, and Jameis Winston, if not for 4 interceptions last week, I feel like the Bucs would have beaten the Texans. That game ended up being a 3-point push, which was very frustrating for us. But it really felt like a game the Bucs should have won if their quarterback didn't turn the ball over. I know the Falcons are playing to save Dan Quinn's job, but they're going to have trouble containing this Bucs offense. Even without their top-tier receivers, Jameis Winston was still able to move the ball through the air, and I think it speaks to the growth he's making as a passer. He still needs to limit the turnovers. That's always been the problem, but they'll take some mistakes with the good that he can do. And the Falcons also last week let the Jags back into the game. They were winning in the first quarter 14-0, and then for the rest of the game it was 12-10 in favor of the Jaguars. So I don't think the Jags were ever really a threat to win that game, but Atlanta's offense had some problems. So I like the Bucs here quite a bit, especially if public money keeps coming in on the Falcons. I have the Bucs down for 3 units right now, so I will be on them this week.
Yeah, I like the Buccaneers a lot too. Same unit count actually, so it's nice to be on the same page. Yeah, I think the Buccaneers are better than the Falcons, and the DVOA numbers kind of agree with that. The DVOA actually has Tampa Bay as the 11th best team in the NFL, whereas Atlanta's number 18, and both of these teams have improved since the bye. But Tampa's playing so well outside of Jameis Winston's interceptions, and like, yeah, that was a frustrating push, and it wasn't even the most frustrating push from the Buccaneers this year. That was that Seattle game that like they were 6-point dogs and they were ahead the whole game, and they somehow didn't cover, which is just crazy. But yeah, they should be able to win this game. Their secondary has gotten so much better. Like no one's paying attention to that. I still hear like fantasy experts saying, "Oh, you can throw on the Buccaneers," and just ask Deshaun Watson about that. Like he couldn't throw on the Buccaneers at all. Their pass rush is very good, and their cornerbacks have gotten better. The safeties are still bad, but you know their corners cover well, and they should do a good job on the Falcons. And the run defense is awesome. But I think like a big factor is that their offensive line has played so well. Like in that game against Houston, Winston had all the time in the world. So yeah, if it wasn't for those interceptions, which you know it could happen in this game. I think that I think the Buccaneers should be able to win, and for only -1, like this line should be at least 3. So I think you're getting good value with the Buccaneers. So yeah, I like Tampa for 3 units.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tampa's offensive line playing well. It's not like the Falcons have much of a pass rush either, so I feel like that is definitely a big factor to keep an eye on. If Winston has time, you know, he could throw all over this defense if he avoids turnovers.
Yeah, that's true. Christian asks, is Kyler Murray still injured? We don't know. There's no line on the game, so no one knows if he's going to play. Andrew says, I'm convinced Crab Legs just closes his eyes and throws the ball as hard as he can. I actually saw a funny tweet today. Someone was saying, imagine if Jameis Winston like wasn't another profession, like if he ran a daycare, like there'd be a 50% chance your child would be dead, like when you pick them up, and a 50% chance they'd be fluent in Chinese, like when you pick them up. Like it's kind of crazy like that. It's pretty insane. But yeah, Winston has his upsides and his downsides. So all right, the next game is the Saints at the Panthers. This line opened up Saints -11. It's up to 13. No surprise there. No surprise that the public is all over the Saints. So who do you like in this game?
I'm with the public. I like the Saints. Basically, no number could convince me to bet the Panthers after what they did against the Colts. I'm also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a little mad at myself for picking the Panthers against the Colts because my notes really told me the Colts probably were the right side, but I didn't like the number enough. The Panthers just don't have any motivation to play well. Perry Fuel's not coming back next year as the coach. Meanwhile, the Saints are potentially playing for a first-round bye. So I think they're going to come motivated. They're going to want to show up and play really well. So I'm going to be on the Saints. I don't love the number, but I'll probably do 1 to 2 units on him or on this team. I just think the Panthers, they're done. They're ready for the season to be over.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting you said you would need you couldn't bet on the Panthers at any number, and I love like hearing that. I always like think about what I would do if this line would just like shot up exponentially. So like obviously you would bet the Panthers at a certain number. Like if the Panthers were plus 95 points, like you would definitely bet them, right? So like what is the number? I'm just curious, and I'm thinking about this as well. Like what is the number where you would bet actual money on the Panthers?
Oh man, that's tough. I feel like it's probably for me somewhere around 20. Like I feel like the Panthers could cover like 3 touchdowns. And I know I said I didn't love the number 13. I just don't like big spreads in general. But I feel like 20 would be fair. Like you're giving Will Grier about 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I was thinking about like 24 even. Like I don't like the Panthers at all. Especially with like I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to play this whole game. Like why even run him into the ground? He already set the record for receptions. Maybe he broke his own record, but still he set that record. He has nothing to play for anymore. I could see him playing like half the game and then just like taking the second half off. DJ Moore had a concussion. I mentioned that earlier. He may not play. So what do the Panthers have? And like the Panthers' whole offense last week was just dumping off passes to McCaffrey. He caught 15 passes. If McCaffrey's not playing, like they'll have no offense at all. So yeah, I think I think the Saints are the right side. The Panthers might quit. I love betting against teams, as I said earlier, like who are going to fire their head coaches, and Fuel's not coming back, even though he's interviewing for the job. So yeah, I like the Saints. I'm actually on them for 3 units, so definitely like them quite a bit.
Okay, I maybe convince me to bet 2 units then on that. I could get down with that. I hate the Panthers, so I'm on that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next game is Jets at the Bills. This is another game where the one of the teams may sit their starters because the Bills are locked into the 5 seed. This line opened up Bills -5.5, but again, that was like a fake spread. This line is right now Bills -1.5. So who do you like in this game? I should mention that a good amount of public actions on the Bills, like almost 75%.
I'm kind of surprised by, well, maybe not surprised by that. The public has like the Bills a lot this year, but I'm on the Jets here. The Bills don't have anything to play for, and if they do sit their starters, or if Josh Allen doesn't play the whole game, then we're talking about Matt Barkley getting action. And Barkley can be accurate, but he also can be turnover prone, and sometimes he doesn't have a strong arm, so he doesn't make any explosive plays, which is what the Bills' offense lived off of last week against the Patriots. And I just think that Adam Gase is going to actually have the Jets motivated. I know neither of us likes or trusts Adam Gase as a coach, but if you take a look at what the New York Post back page was today, where it was basically him being like, F this, I don't care what people think, I'm rich. Like, that was the back page of the Post. And I don't know who leaked that or how that happened, but he's got to be pissed off about that. So I think he's going to have the Jets show up here. And if they close the season with a win over the Steelers that may have knocked them out of the playoffs, and a win against the Bills, a team that's going to the playoffs, that'll build some positive momentum. They can kind of blame their early season struggles on Sam Darnold being sick. And it is worth noting, these two teams did play in week 1, and the Jets really should have won that game outright, but Darnold kind of collapsed down the stretch, and we later learned that he had mono. So I think that played a big role in them not being able to cover. So I don't think that the Bills are the right side here, especially if they play their backup. So I'm going to be on the Jets here. I'll probably be on them for 3 units. I may change that depending on if the backups are announced to play. I may move it up. If they're not going to play, I may move it down to 2. But I still like this.
Yeah, I'm on the Jets for a couple units. I wrote this on the site that I'm not actually betting this game because I already have a large stake on the Jets, because I bet the Jets over 7 wins pretty heavily, and the Jets over 6.5 wins a little bit more. And yeah, I feel like those would have hit if Sam Darnold didn't get mono and miss several games. They have 6 wins right now, so 7 would push it, and 7 would win the other bet. So yeah, I like that as well. I mean, yeah, like you said, it was it's kind of like closes the I guess like closes the circle on what happened earlier, where the Jets had a 16-0 lead and then blew it in the fourth quarter, where Darnold had mono, and then CJ Mosley got hurt, and it just, things collapsed after that. But like, they can kind of like right the ship sort of, and kind of build momentum for next year. And yeah, Gase is returning. Darnold's trying to get better. This team is playing hard. Like they played the Steelers pretty hard. So I don't see why that would change against the Bills. Unfortunately, the Bills have like a decent backup in Matt Barkley. If this were a worse backup like Sean Mannion, I'd be higher on the Jets. But I think Barkley's like competent, and he's won some games in the NFL before. So not crazy about the Jets here, but I do like him for a couple units.
Yeah, Barkley's definitely won some games, but I always feel like he'll have like 2 games, and then people will be like, "Oh, he's looking like a good backup," and then he has like a 4 interception game with no touchdowns. So I'm picking that version of Barkley, but it is possible that the really accurate one could show up.
That's true, but he is great in the preseason though, so that does count for something. Bright Pack is asking, do Bucks versus Falcons? We actually did that a few minutes ago, so looks like you're watching YouTube. You can rewind a few minutes and then watch our picks on that game. We actually like one side quite a bit. All right, next game is the Dolphins at the Patriots. This line opened up Patriots -16.5. It's now 15.5. Looks like a decent amount of money on the Dolphins, actually. This is a high line, I guess, and people are still used to the Patriots not scoring very much. So are you with the public here?
I am not. Just in reference to the line going down, because people are pounding the Dolphins. The Dolphins had a 22-point lead last week and only won by 3, and it took overtime. So the Dolphins are prone to being scored on by not particularly good offenses like the Bengals. The Patriots' offense has not been great this year, but they're playing for a lot in this contest. If they win, they lock up the 2 seed, get that first round bye, which is massive for them because home field in Foxborough is much preferable to going on the road to Arrowhead after having to take on whoever the 6th seed is if they lose. So that's something they're playing for. And they also need to keep building momentum on offense. They finally got the ball moving a bit against Buffalo last week. Tom Brady looked better. Their running game got going. So I think those 2 things are going to be something that they build on. I want to just note that I'm very peeved that they covered by half a point because I was this close to predicting the exact score of that game at 22-17. But their made 2-point conversion made that not happen. But yeah, the Patriots are the right side here. I know it's a really high line, so it's scary to bet on this. But as good as the Dolphins have been under Brian Flores with like a roster that should not be as competitive as it is, I think Bill Belichick's going to have his team absolutely rare and ready to go. The only danger, in my opinion, will be is if the Patriots get up really huge and then in the fourth quarter bench their starters and there's somehow a backdoor cover. I don't see that happening, though. So I will be on the Patriots minus 15.5. With the public on the Dolphins, I could bet as many as 4 units on this one. I'm probably on it for 2 right now just because big lines still do scare me. So.
Yeah, I'm right there in the middle. I have 3 units on the Patriots. I think people might, the bettors who are taking the Dolphins might have amnesia, and I think they forgot what happened when Ryan Fitzpatrick started against the Patriots in week 2. Like the Dolphins just self-destructed and the Patriots won that game. It wasn't like 28-0 or something like that. So yeah, I don't see why that would change at all. I mean, Fitzpatrick has played well this year, and Devontae Parker has been excellent. But you're going to have Parker going against Stephon Gilmore. So I think Gilmore will shut him down. And the Patriots have other great defensive backs. And the Patriots are weaker against the run than the pass. They're not like bad against the run. They're just weaker against it. But the Dolphins can't run the ball because they have so many injured running backs and their offensive line sucks. So it's like, how are the Dolphins going to move the ball against the Patriots? Like, I just don't see it. Conversely, I think, the Patriots improving offensively is pretty key. And, I guess shocker that Bill Belichick figures something out. Right. I mean, like people, I love how like people were just giving up the Patriots for dead. Whereas like they did the same thing last year. They lost games against the Dolphins and the Steelers back to back. And people are like, "Oh, this team's done," and then they won the Super Bowl. So, like, you can't count them out. Like, the only way I'm going to say the Patriots are done is if they actually lose a playoff game and they're actually done. Like, I won't ever count them out. But anyway, I think they'll win this game pretty easily. You're right about the backdoor. Like, something crazy could happen. But I still like the Patriots, and I think it's worth noting that they're 14-3 against the spread in Week 17 under Belichick and Brady. Like, that's pretty impressive. And like, I hate trends, but I think that just like denotes how, Belichick can scheme around coaches and players who might not be fully invested in playing. Like, he already has a great spread record, but 14-3 against the spread, it just kind of shows that, he just has such a huge advantage in these spots.
Yeah, and that's like a trend that's worth noting, like you said, because it's consistent throughout the 20 years he's been in New England. They're always competitive in Week 17, even in the rare case where they've already had something completely wrapped up. But you mentioned the Dolphins' run game. I want to mention one name who they just signed because I was like the captain of his hype train when he was with the Redskins. They scooped Samaje Perine from the Bengals practice squad, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play, hopefully on Sunday, and probably more than anyone else in the world wants to see Samaje Perine. So, Perine, if you're watching this, which you're probably not, please do something on one carry. I don't even care if you get one touch. Just do something big. Make me proud.
I'm sure he's watching this. Like, come on.
Yeah.
All right. The comment here. I hope the Giants draft 5 instead of 3 or 4. Missing Chase Young by 1 would hurt too much. It's like, the Giants won that game, but like, did they really win? I mean, they're going to have Chase Young chasing around Daniel Jones for 12 years. Like, that's going to be terrible. That was a really bad loss, actually. We had a question about the Hawaii Bowl. Honestly, I don't even know what this is. I've made my own sponsorships for these bowls. Like today, the Haas and Milan Bowl is on, as far as I'm concerned. So I have a pick on that on the site. Yeah, I mean, hungry for apples is nice. So it's a nice slogan, I think. Even though Jerry Smith got fired for it. Andrew says 43-0 Patriots. I said 28-0. Yeah, there were. I guess I blocked that out because there were 2 pick sixes, and I had 0 Patriots on DraftKings that week, and that got me very tilted because you had to have Patriots defense to do well on DraftKings, and I guess might as well do it now. You can go to DraftKings.com, enter in promo code Walter Football. That's one word, Walter Football, for a bonus at your first deposit. And that's kind of crazy that you get a bonus at your first deposit. If I didn't know that, I would not believe myself. So definitely get on that. All right, next game is let's see, the Packers at the Lions. So the Packers open up -10. It's up to 12, actually 12.5 in some books. So who do you like in this game?
I do like the Packers just because, again, they're playing for the potential first-round bye, and I know they're overrated, and they're probably even more overrated because they just beat the Vikings, who are also overrated. But Mike Pettin absolutely has got their defense playing well at the right time. They were able to confuse Kirk Cousins on Monday night, and they played very well to start the season. Kind of then adopted a bend but don't break philosophy. And in the last game, we saw them go back to that. We're not letting the Vikings move the ball at all. I don't think that the Lions are going to be able to move the ball that much if the Packers bring that same type of mentality to this game. I don't know if there could be potential for a little bit of a letdown because the Packers wrapped up the North last week and it was a huge game. But I feel like they should be okay to play the Lions and win, knowing that they could possibly get a first-round bye if they win. And, the David Blau and Kerryon Johnson don't particularly scare me, especially with the Lions receiving core being banged up. They don't have Marvin Jones. They still have Kenny Golladay, who's also good. And, Blau, to his credit, he played very well last week against Denver. But I just think the Packers have so much more to play for. I think the Lions could, pack it in and call it a season. They know that Blau is not going to be starting for them week 1 next year. It's going to be Matthew Stafford, hopefully, if he's healthy. So I kind of think that's probably the end of the line for the Lions.
Yeah, I think so too. They've been bad since Thanksgiving. They lost by 13 to the Vikings, 21 to the Buccaneers, and then 10 to Denver last week. But that's misleading because they had a special teams touchdown. So if it wasn't for that, they would have lost by 17 to Denver. Not a very good Denver team. Like a decent Denver team, not very good. And the Packers are a lot better than all 3 of those teams. So it seems like the Packers should be able to win this game easily, and they're going to be motivated. For sure, because they need they want that first round bye, and maybe even home field advantage if the Niners lose. So yeah, the Packers are going to be motivated. The Lions might be looking forward to vacation, and I think this should be an easy win. This line's inflated though. I mean, it's pretty high. I made this line like around -9, I think. So you have to pay a premium for this, but sometimes you just have to do it. I'm gonna put 2 units on the Packers. So a question from Kremens, what does it mean when a team is smelling themselves? That's an old Kenny Ortiz quote. Hopefully Kenny's listening. Merry Christmas, Kenny, if you are. It means that a team did very well, but then they're reading all the press clippings and they think that, they're an awesome team and they can't be defeated, and they get super overconfident, and then they probably lose or don't cover the spread. So that's what that means. Andrew asks, could this be the Lions Super Bowl? So that kind of occurred to me as well. And I do think it's possible, but I think they have so many injuries for it to be their Super Bowl. Like they're down 2 of their receivers, including TJ Hawkinson. They're down 2 offensive linemen. They're down 2 linebackers. They're down 2 defensive linemen. They're down some defensive backs. They're down the top 2 quarterbacks. I think they're just too injured to be motivated like this. If not even Stafford were healthy, but if most of their team were healthy, I'd be like, yeah, sure. They could really play hard here, but they don't have any bodies left. So I just don't see how they can get up for the Packers.
Yeah, I agree with that. under normal circumstances, if they were healthier, definitely they could view it as a Super Bowl and a chance to knock the Packers from like the potential one to definitely having to play in the first week of the playoffs. But I don't see it happening this year. But I do think the Lions understand they're a professional football team. I just don't think they're very good this year.
No, they actually started pretty well, but they've had so many injuries. It's crazy. Like it's crazy how injured they are. Like they have multiple injuries at so many positions. It's crazy. All right, last of the late afternoon games, the Chargers at the Chiefs. This line open up Chiefs -7. It's up to 8.5. More than 90% of the money is on the Chiefs. So, are you with the public here?
I am with the public. I don't see what the Chargers would have to play for in this one. I mean, they lost to the Raiders at home in what had to have been one of the most humiliating home crowds in NFL history because it was like, I think 100% Raider fans. I know that's not possible, but it was possibly 95% Raider fans. The Chiefs defense has stepped up lately. They're playing their best of the season. They're allowing 9.6 points per game over their last 5 games, which have all been wins. And that included a win over the Chargers on the road. They beat them by 7 in Los Angeles. So I would think 8.5 at home is a number that they could cover. And the Chiefs will be motivated to win. They could have a shot at a first-round bye in the very, very unlikely event that the Patriots lose to the Dolphins. But I think that the Chiefs will come out and at least try to win this game just so they give themselves the chance at the outside. That said, there is a chance that if the Chiefs are scoreboard watching a bit and the Patriots get up big on the Dolphins, they could say in the second half, like, all right, we're kind of locked into the 3 seed. Let's just get Patrick Mahomes and these guys out of the game so they don't get hurt. But that said, Matt Moore did well earlier in the season in relief of Patrick Mahomes. So I feel like he could have the offense moving, but I don't know if he'd cover this spread. So for this game, I'm just going to be on. I'll be on the Chiefs -8.5, but I'm probably not going to bet this one just because there are too many factors in there that could influence how this game comes out, and it's mostly about scoreboard watching to me.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor. Like if the Patriots are up by 3 touchdowns at halftime, Andy Reid could just be like, all right, Patrick Mahomes, take a seat. Like Andy Reid has a history of benching his starters in Week 17. So if he feels like he doesn't need to play these guys, like why risk injury? Like he'll definitely be on top of that. But like that's actually not the only reason I'm taking the Chargers here. The second reason is that, I know that they look terrible in that home loss to the Raiders. I just don't know. I just don't think they were motivated in that game. Like, yeah, you mentioned the Raider fans. Like, how do you get motivated that like when a home crowd is rooting against you? Like, they had to go to a silent count. Like, it was just embarrassing. But I think they're going to be more motivated in this game. I know, like, technically they don't have anything to play for, but they hate the Chiefs. They would love to make sure the Chiefs don't get a bye. So it's like a small victory for them. Anthony Lynn will come back next year. Philip Rivers is, I guess, sort of playing for his job. I mean, like, if he's terrible in this game, the Chargers might convince themselves that they need a new quarterback. So I think they have something to play for. And Rivers has a knack for keeping games close. Like, even if it's in garbage time, like I could see the Chiefs being up 3 touchdowns in this game, and then Philip Rivers making it a 1 touchdown game with like 2 garbage time scores at the end. It's like what he does. Quick question. I just looked this up. I want to see if you know this, the answers to this. How many times have the Chargers lost by more than 7 this year?
I think it's only 4, right? It's like it's either 3 or 4. They're like 2-9 in games decided by 7 or less, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, they've only lost by more than 7 only once, and that was
Okay.
that was to the Vikings. So they've had a bunch of losses by exactly 7, but not more than 7. And that Minnesota game was just ridiculous because they had 5 fumbles, it was like 3 interceptions and a blocked field goal. That was very fluky. I thought that was not like a real result. That was not indicative of how good those teams are compared to each other. So yeah, I think the Chiefs could be a bit lazy at the end of this game, and even if they're not, Rivers can just throw some garbage scores and cover the spread. So I like the Chargers. I don't know if I'm going to bet them yet. I want to see if Russell Okung plays. Like, I think that's a big deal. Okung did not play last week, which I think is one of the reasons why they couldn't score on the Raiders. But if Okung plays, like, that's a big deal, and he'll be able to block Frank Clark like somewhat well. And so if he's in the game, I'm probably going to bet on the Chargers for a unit or two.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'm probably just going to stick with the Chiefs for no units. This is one of my least favorite games of the week, just because I didn't love the number, but I also just don't love picking the Chargers. Though your argument for them does make sense, so I will give you that.
Okay, Chiefs Lightning says, and this is something that I saw an email about too, so I want to address this. If the Chiefs lose, then the Texans win. The Chiefs fall to 4. Historically, I've noticed that teams don't care about this. They don't care if they're 3 or 4. It doesn't really matter to them. I think what's more important is making sure that Mahomes and everyone else is healthy. So, like, if they have to sacrifice you going from 3 to 4. I think they'll definitely do that to make sure everyone can play in the playoffs. So, and we also have a question. Week 17 is insane to play unless it's DFS. Do you guys feel like week 16 is starting to feel like week 17? Well, we didn't have anyone sit in weeks. No, we had no starters resting in week 16, so I think it was fine. But yeah, I agree. Like if your league is playing into week 17, you should probably join another fantasy league. it's kind of silly. Yeah, go ahead.
Convince that league to move it, because my first however many years that I ran my family league, we played into week 17. But once you get to at least 10 teams in those leagues, it doesn't work. So you gotta go just to week 16.
Yeah, I started playing in fantasy football in 94 or something, and we called it the John Elway rule, because John Elway was like borderline undraftable in that league unless you got him a little bit late, because he would never play in week 17 because the Broncos would be way up in the standings. So people would avoid John Elway. So we figured out well, let's make the championship week 16, not week 17. And everyone was like, oh, that's a good idea. So John Elway became draftable again. So that's a little bit of a history there. So let's get to the late afternoon games. These are the games that really matter as far as teams making the playoffs. So Titans at the Texans. This line opened up Texans -1. So now it went up to Titans -5.5. And then Bill O'Brien said that he's going to play his starters. I'm not sure if I believe him or not. That's what he said. This line's now down to Titans -3.5. So who do you like in this game?
I do like the Titans because I don't believe that Bill O'Brien's going to play his starters. I guess I could see it happening because, he might be like, hey, let's try to knock out a divisional rival here. And on the off chance that the Chiefs win, they could possibly move up to the 3 seed, which I know you just said doesn't matter really, but you never know. Bill O'Brien may want to play the Patriots again because they beat him, but that wouldn't make any sense to me because Bill O'Brien's been historically very bad against the Patriots. So anyway, I'm talking myself in circles here, but the Titans can clinch a playoff spot with a win. I'm fairly certain that's how it works. The tiebreaker in the AFC for the 6th seed is very confusing to me. So, but I do believe the Titans with a win can clinch it. So I think the question is, can Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, if he plays, cover this type of spread? And I think the answer is yes, especially with it coming down to 3.5. I would probably want Titans -3 if we're unsure about whether or not the starters are going to play. But even if they do play, it could get to a point where O'Brien's just like, all right, well, we're not going to benefit from this anymore. We've played 3 drives. We've been good on offense. Let's get them out of there, avoid them getting hurt. So after that, you're looking at A.J. McCarron playing. A.J. McCarron can be accurate, but again, he's not a big-time playmaker, nothing like Deshaun Watson, obviously. So I'll be on the Titans. I'm not going to bet this one until I really get a good vibe on what the Texans are going to do with their starters, but I am favoring the Titans.
Yeah, I am too. This could be kind of a thing that the Colts used to do back in the 2000s, where they used to say, oh, Peyton Manning is going to play in these meaningless games. Peyton Manning would play one drive, they'd score a quick touchdown, and then he'd be out of there. That's basically what happened. I could see the Texans doing that, but if Bill O'Brien plays his starters the entire game, he's an idiot, because Jason Garrett did this last year. For some reason, Jason Garrett decided to play his starters against the Giants in a game that didn't mean anything, and they won the game. But Cole Beasley got injured on the last play, and Cole Beasley being out of the playoff games just made their offense so much worse. They had no chance against the Rams because Beasley was injured. I believe he played, but he wasn't 100%. He couldn't move around. So like that was a huge deal. And like Bill O'Brien not learning from that mistake would just show how bad of a coach he is. So he better not play his starters, most of the starters anyway. So I think I will be on Tennessee. I'm not going to bet them because this line is above 3 and Tennessee could choke. I have something called the Aurora Snowmo effect, where Aurora Snow was a famous porn star. I don't know if she still does it, but she used to always choke. And then Tony Romo used to always choke early in his career. So I combined the two. This is like years ago. This is like 14 years ago. I came up with the Aurora Snowmo rule. But yeah, I mean, it's worked. Like teams that need to win in week 17 usually don't win. Like, and I think people assume they will. But I remember like a famous handicapper, Dave Koken, who still does handicapping. I remember a quote he once said in the early 2000s. He said, "If a team needs to win, they're probably not very good in the first place." So I think that applies. And if I were convinced the Texans would definitely play all their starters, I would be on the Texans for sure. But I do think that that Bill O'Brien will sit his starters at some point in this game, if not the entire game. So yeah, I'll be on Tennessee, but I'm not betting this game.
Yeah, the one caveat to the quote you just mentioned, if they need to win a game, they're not very good. That definitely applies, and I believe in that philosophy. But with the Titans, they were so much better with Tannehill at the helm as opposed to Mariota. So I think that quarterback switch does play a little bit into it. But yeah, I could definitely see a world in which they don't cover, they lose this game outright, and let the Steelers and Duck Hodges backdoor into the playoffs somehow.
Yeah, that's for sure. So Andrew says Texas might not want to see the Titans in the playoffs. It would be very difficult for them to see each other in the playoffs because both teams would not be able to play each other until the AFC Championship, based on how it's set up. Because the Texans would have to play the 1 or the 2 in the second round, and the Titans would have to play the other team. They can't play each other in the second round. So if we're worried about who you're going to play in the AFC Championship, like I think I'd be fine playing Tennessee in the AFC Championship, like no matter what, right? And it doesn't even matter if you tried out Deshaun Watson out there and he gets hurt, like you're not going to the AFC Championship anyway. So I don't really buy that. I think I think if Bill O'Brien is not a complete imbecile, like he'll sit his starters for at least most of the game. And I should say, before we move on to the next game, we will be talking about our favorite Super Bowl props after the final game. So stay tuned for that as well. I just wanted to mention that. I was going to mention it earlier, but forgot. All right, next game, Colts at the Jaguars. The line open up. Colts -1. It's up to 3.5. Actually 4 in some books. Plenty of public action on the Colts. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Colts in this one. I'm with the public. The Jaguars are not trying. They've been very, very bad since the whole Minshew mania stuff has worn off, and Nick Foles was put back in the quarterback position and then removed. And it just seems like they're not trying at all. And they're averaging like 12.7 points in their last 7 games. So that's not good at all. Doug Marrone is reportedly safe right now as a head coach, but I don't know if I believe in that necessarily. The players don't seem to like him very much and seem to want him gone. That would explain why they are not trying recently. But I'm definitely on the Colts here because Frank Reich is definitely coming back. He got this team to they're 7-8 right now, so they have a chance to finish 500 despite the surprise retirement of Andrew Luck on eve of the season, which is pretty impressive. And they're coming off a massive win over the Panthers, who had similar motivations to the Jaguars. And we did talk about that. A lot of that came from a few big-time punt returns. But if they play better, run the ball a little bit better, and they will against Jacksonville's defense, which is terrible against the run, I think they're going to be in good shape. So I'm going to be on the Colts -4 for probably a couple units. I know the lines moved a lot, but I think that was more of a correction than anything else. I think the Colts should definitely be favored by at least 3 in this game.
Yeah, I think so too. I made the line -3. So to have to lay 4 is not ideal. I wish it was still the advanced spread was Jaguars -1.5, which is kind of crazy. Like where'd they get that from? I think it was like a reaction to the Monday night game. So they were reacting one way and now they're overreacting the other way. But I think you're right. I think this should be closer to 3. Maybe even 3.5, you could argue, but now you have to lay 4. So I don't know if I want to do that. I would say the only caveat is that if Doug Marrone is announced, like if Schefter comes out and says Marrone will definitely be fired, then I will absolutely bet on the Colts. Because what I mentioned before, teams with lame duck coaches often do poorly in Week 17. But if the Jaguars think Marrone is coming back, then they might show some signs of life. They lost by 12 at Atlanta, but they kind of did play hard after they went down 14-0. So that's a little scary to me to bet the Colts at -4, knowing that they might play hard. At least somewhat hard. But I still like the Colts. I think they're a much better team, and the Jaguars are just so miserable. There's so many injuries at linebacker. Their secondary hasn't been the same since they traded Jalen Ramsey away. They have other injuries as well. So I'm going to be on the Colts, but TBA Eunice for now.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. My initial reaction was -3 for the Colts is fair, but I'm willing to pay a little extra juice just fading the Jaguars because they've been so bad recently.
Yeah, they've been awful. Andrew says, "Are we going to gloss over the porn references?" I don't know. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think it's something. The Aurora Snowmo effect is something I've written about for a decade and a half already. So, all right, let's get to the next game. So I think this one might have an Aurora Snowmo effect. The Redskins at the Cowboys. This line opened Cowboys -14. It's down to 11. Somewhat lean on the Redskins, not a lot though. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Redskins quite a bit in this game. I don't understand why the Cowboys are favored by this much. They should not be favored by double digits or really anything close to that. Like I could give them maybe a touchdown in this game. I think 7 would be fair, but we're talking 11 right now. That just seems way off to me. The Cowboys have needed to win for multiple weeks, and the only time they showed up was against the Rams. I mean, they lost to the Eagles last week. Dak Prescott did not look right. I don't know if that hand is still bothering him and preventing him from throwing well, but he just doesn't look right now. And the Redskins are going to treat this as their biggest game of the season. They have a chance to keep the Cowboys out of the postseason, which in a lost season would be huge for them. I know a lot of Redskins fans won't be happy to hear that because they really want to hold on to the second pick and Chase Young, but don't worry. I think they still could lose this game. It's well within the realm of possibility. Case Keenum's starting for Dwayne Haskins, who suffered a ankle injury at the end or right after halftime last week. But Keenum played well against the Giants. He should play well against the Cowboys as well. He's kind of just ever steady. I'm not a Case Keenum truther, though. Those people really annoy me. I had someone today tell me that they thought something was up because Keenum was named the starter. He was like, "Oh yeah, that means there's something going on behind the scenes we don't know about." And I was like, "No, dude, Haskins hurt his ankle. I mean, come on. Like, that's why Keenum is starting. They don't want to play Haskins through the injury, because he's their future at quarterback." But anyway, Case Keenum truthers aside, the Redskins should have a great chance to cover. They scored 21 on the Cowboys defense earlier in the season, and they lost that game, I think, by 10. So we're getting 11 in this game when they've been playing better and the Cowboys have been playing worse. I think it's a no-brainer, Redskins here.
Yeah, I think so too. This is one of my top picks of the week. Nothing says that Dallas should be favored by more than 10. Like I agree with you. I made this line Dallas -6.5, which I thought, when I make a line, I'm like, all right, am I off here? So I want to check everything else. DVOA says this should be Dallas -8. The advanced spread was Dallas -7.5. Like even the computer model is like more bullish on the Cowboys than anything else, and they have Dallas -10. So like that's not even 11. So I think this line's too high. I think it's because people think the Cowboys need to win. So they will win. It doesn't work that way. As I said, the Aurora Snowmo effect. And Martin says, pretend that I don't follow her quote unquote career. I actually don't know. I don't even know if she's still making porn or not. But I don't know. I have no idea. I would like to know. Anyway, I think the Redskins, as you said, this is like their Super Bowl. So I think they'll be playing very hard. They'd like the Cowboys to lose, and yeah, I could see them ruining the Chase Young pick after falling into it, and that would mean Detroit would get Chase Young, number 2 overall. It's crazy how these teams just pass on a once in a decade type pass rusher. So I don't understand it, but the players want to win, and I think the Redskins will want to beat the Cowboys. And with Dak Prescott being injured, Amari Cooper is injured. This team's not very good right now. So I don't know why they would suddenly win by more than 11. So yeah, I love the Redskins. This is a 5-unit pick for me.
Yeah, the one concern I have, and the reason I probably will go 3 units, not match your 5 units, is the Redskins have some really horrible issues in the secondary. Like, they put Quentin Dunbar on IR, and Danny Johnson is on IR now, and Jimmy Moreland. They won't play Josh Norman because they hate him now. It may have something to do with incentives. I would have to look into that, but they just don't want to play him. So we're talking about, like, their top corners are like Aaron Colvin, Fabian Moreau, who may not play, and then a bunch of guys they just signed off the street: Kayvon Webster, Cody Sensabaugh, D. Delaney, and Breon Borders. So not exactly good news there, but again, I still don't think that's enough to make me think about betting the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I didn't know Quentin Dunbar was on IR. Like, I knew he was injured, but I was going to look at the injury report to see if he was on it. But yeah, if he doesn't play, that kind of sucks. But then again, Prescott can't even connect on basic passes, and he didn't do well against the Eagles, and the Eagles have bad cornerbacks as well. So not convinced that Dallas is going to score too many points in this game. TJ says the Bengals will draft Chase Young number 1. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Like, they could always just not like Joe Burrow, and they can be like, all right, we're just going to draft Chase Young. But I think it's more likely that they will draft Joe Burrow. But I don't think it's impossible that they will make the Young decision.
Yeah, I could definitely see them drafting Chase Young. I think he'd fit in well there. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be easy for them to pass on Burrow, though. The thing I'd wonder about, though, is, say they don't like Burrow, but they like Tua. Maybe they try to trade down and someone trades up for Chase Young. But I don't know if that would realistically happen. But, the draft, we always like to say, or people always like to say, oh, this guy's locked into number 1. It's never the case until you get close to the draft.
That's true. Remember last year, Kyler Murray came out of nowhere to be number 1. Like, that's it can always change for sure. But I do think Burrow is the overwhelming favorite right now, but definitely not locked in. All right, next game, Eagles at the Giants. It's line open up. Eagles -4. It's up to 4.5. Good amount of action on the Eagles, so no surprise there. So who do you like in this game?
So this game feels almost identical to the last game we talked about, yet I'm on the opposite side of the side I'm on from last game. I like the Eagles in this one. I know we talked a lot about the Aurora Snowmo effect, which I will admit I did Google that before we did this podcast, because I had no idea what you're talking about in your picks articles when I read them, but now I know. But I just feel like the Eagles are a better team, and I think they're getting Jordan Howard back this week because they released Jay Ajayi, so I think that will at least give them some extra punch on offense. I know these games tend to be close, so 4.5 isn't exactly a great number to be getting here. But the Giants defense, it can be beaten. I mean, we saw the Redskins go off for 35 against them last week. I think this might be kind of exactly what the Eagles offense needs to get a little bit, get going a little bit before the postseason, provided that they can win, which I think they will. But I'm going to go with the Eagles because I just think they're the better team, and I think they can win this game by like 6 or so. I'm not confident enough in that to bet on it, though, especially with Lane Johnson and Nelson Aguilar potentially out. And I totally get the case for the Giants, given what we just said about the Redskins and the Cowboys. So this is another game that I'm not super high on, but I'm sticking with the Eagles because they've not let me down much this year. I think they may be one of the teams I've been best at picking.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Giants again. These games are always close. I think the outside of the Thursday night game where it was just a short week for the Giants. I think every game has been decided by 6 or fewer over the past 3 or 4 years. Like it's been like 3-3, 5-5, 5-5, 6. Like these games are always close. It doesn't matter how good one team is. It doesn't matter how bad one team is. These teams are always going to be close to each other because this is a huge rivalry. And I actually think this line's too high. I made this line Eagles -1.5. And I looked elsewhere. DVOA says Eagles should be -1. So I think the spread's inflated because the Eagles need to win. And I think the public is just betting on them because they think they'll win. The public saw what happened last week. The Eagles beat the Cowboys, but the Cowboys were horrible in that game. They couldn't complete basic passes. And Yeah, the Eagles still scored only 17 points. They only won by 8. Like I feel like the Eagles, if they were a better team, they would have won by a lot more than 8, considering how bad Dallas was in that game. And another factor is that like Zach Ertz is now injured. I'm hearing that he may not play in this game. So if he's out, Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, all sidelined. I don't know if Lane Johnson is going to play. If he's out, that's huge. So the Eagles are not healthy at all. Whereas the Giants seem to be getting healthier, outside of Evan Ingram. But Daniel Jones was back last week. He was excellent. Albeit against the Redskins' horrible secondary, but the Eagles have issues as well. Ronald Darby's not going to play in this game, probably. So the Eagles are down just a cornerback, and they weren't good there anyway. And Saquon Barkley's health, I think, is huge. Like Barkley was just laboring through an injury for most of the year, because remember when he suffered that high ankle sprain against the Buccaneers? People were like, "Oh, he's going to be out 8 weeks," but he came back like 3 weeks later or something like that. And like people were like, "Oh wow, Barkley's like a miracle that he came back," but he wasn't healthy. Like he shouldn't have come back. He really shouldn't have come back. He should have stayed out for those 8 weeks. But now it's like it's actually now 8 weeks later, and Barkley's completely healthy again. And the way he played against the Redskins and the Dolphins, like I don't know if the Eagles can stop that. Like the Eagles are good against the run, but they're not good against pass catching running backs. And so I think Barkley could have a huge game. And this is the Giants Super Bowl. Like they would love to beat the Eagles and knock them out of the playoffs. Little do they know that the Redskins will probably beat the Cowboys too. But I do think that the Giants could win this game. I think it'll be a field goal game. So yeah, I like the Giants a lot. It's a 5-unit pick for me.
Yeah, you definitely make a good case. You have not swayed me enough, though. I will stick to my 0-unit Eagles pick just because I don't want to pick against the Eagles, because I want them in the playoffs more than the Cowboys. That's honestly my main reasoning at this point. But I defer to your pick for anyone out there listening who wants to make a legitimate pick.
Yeah, I do think that the Eagles can be very dangerous in the playoffs, like despite thinking that they could lose this game. Because I think in the playoffs, it sounds like, Ertz should be back in 2 weeks. Lane Johnson probably could be back in 2 weeks. And I'm hearing Deshaun Jackson might return in 2 weeks. So like if they get all those guys back, like suddenly I think this is a dangerous team. But the way they are right now with the high number of injuries they have, I just don't know if they can beat anyone not named like the Jaguars or the Lions by more than 5 right now. I just think they're too banged up. All right. Next game, Steelers at the Ravens. The line opened up. Ravens -2.5. It's now Steelers -2.5. This line keeps climbing. I think it'll hit 3 soon because the Ravens announced that none of their starters will play. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Steelers. I know this is another game where it's like, oh, they might have to win to stay in. So the Aurora Snowmo effect once again taking place. But like, we're talking about the Steelers defense going up against Robert Griffin III and Gus Edwards. And as much as I like both of those guys, specifically, I really like Gus Edwards, actually. I don't think they're going to be able to find success against the Steelers defense. The defense is going to know that they're like going to need to make plays for Hodges and make life easy for the offense. So I will be on the Steelers, though there is also the chance that if the Titans win earlier in the day, this game almost doesn't matter for the Steelers. Again, I think there is some weird like strength of schedule or strength of victory tiebreaker that could get the Steelers in, but it would take them winning by a whole lot to do that. So I could see it happening, but I'm probably not going to bet on Duck Hodges in this game. I'm going to be on the Steelers, though, for office pool purposes. Might do a unit on them. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. But also I want to just say, like, if Duck Hodges struggles, we might get to see Paxton Lynch in this game, and I think that would be kind of insane just to see Paxton Lynch, like, all the quarterback of the Steelers. Like, where would that have come from? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
happy holidays.
My whole analysis.
Okay. Yeah, happy holidays to PF Central as well. They're definitely a good follow, so check them out on Twitter. And happy holidays to anyone as well. We had some happy holiday wishes earlier that I posted. So yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I don't know, Festivus. I don't know what you call that, Joyce Festivus. I don't know. Whatever. If you celebrate that as well, happy holidays to you as well. Yeah, so this game is interesting in that, the Aurora Snowmo effect does take place here, but the fact that the Ravens are playing their backups, I think kind of like mitigates that. So I initially thought about betting the Steelers because, as you said, Robert Griffin versus Pittsburgh defense seems like such a big mismatch, and it is. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, the Steelers couldn't even move the ball against the Jets last week, like a Jets defense that's been decimated by injuries. So the Ravens backups play is like, I feel like almost like close to the Jets defense based on how many injuries the Jets have. And the Steelers scored 10 points in that game. So I'm like, can Duck Hodges, and it has to be Duck Hodges because Rudolph's out, like, can Duck Hodges score like more than 10 points in this game? Like, I'm not convinced that he can. So, if this line were 3.5, I would actually consider taking Baltimore. But it's 2.5, so I'm still going to be on the Steelers. Actually, on the site, I have a projected score of 6-3. So I think I'll be on the Steelers, but I'm not going to bet this game.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. If the line climbed up to 3.5, I probably would consider the Ravens too, because I have too often fallen into the betting bad road favorite quarterbacks this year. You've been right on almost all of those. Jeff Driscoll and Duck Hodges on the road. Jets was one of my big mistakes last week. I should have followed you on that one. But yeah, no, I think the Steelers, as long as the line's under 3, I think they'll have a way to win this game. Also, if Duck Hodges struggles, I'm wondering how short his leash is going to be and if Paxton Lynch would come in. I just want to see Paxton Lynch play for the Steelers. I can't explain why, but I just feel like it would be hilarious if it was like all of a sudden Paxton Lynch comes into the game and looks like incredible, looks like the first rounder that he once was, and everyone would be like, why has this guy been on the bench the whole season?
Well, that's been the thing with Paxton Lynch. Remember in the preseason, he was awesome for that one game, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, Paxton Lynch is great," and then like he was terrible after that. Like I feel like it's kind of like epitomizes what Lynch is. Like he has so much talent. Like it's unbelievable how much talent he has. But he just hasn't been able to put it together mentally. But I mean, the potential is there. And he's definitely a better talent than Duck Hodges. So I don't think it'd be the craziest thing in the world that like I could see Lynch like winning this game and then the next week just throwing 5 interceptions and then just losing right away in the playoffs. Like that's a scenario I could definitely see. Yeah, it's a shame what happened to the Steelers because I think, with Roethlisberger being healthy, and the 2 games he played, he wasn't healthy. If he were healthy with this defense and the running game with James Conner and the offensive line, I like that a lot too. Like this could be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. It's just a shame that they have such bad quarterback play. All right, next game is Cardinals at the Rams. We mentioned this earlier. There's no line on this game because Kyler Murray is a question mark. So what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm probably going to favor the Cardinals in this one. Obviously depends on what the spread is, but even if Kyler Murray doesn't play, the Rams don't have anything to play for. They are out of the playoffs now. It was a disappointing season for them, and I think they're just going to kind of pack it in a little bit. And they tried really hard last week against the 49ers to stay alive, and they kept that game a lot closer than I think we thought it was going to end up being. But I think too much favors the Cardinals in this game. The Rams are going to come in flat. The Cardinals are going to want revenge after the Rams crushed them at home. And even if Brett Hundley plays, he looked all right last week. He was throwing short passes and running around a little bit. I don't think he'll make any big downfield plays, but Kenyon Drake in that running game has been incredible lately. So I think they'll be able to move the ball using him, and Drake's presence will open things up for Hundley to run a bit and Hundley to find some open receivers in the short game. So I think the Cardinals, I don't know if they could win this outright. I could see it happening. But if this spread is like anything above 3, I probably would take them.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be on the Cardinals too, especially if Murray plays. I just don't see the Rams showing up after getting eliminated from the playoffs. But if it's Hundley versus Jalen Ramsey and those talented defensive backs and Wade Phillips, it just seems like very dicey to me. It seems like Hundley could have a multi-interception game and just like lose this game on his own. Especially given that I feel like the Rams up front, we saw it a few weeks ago, like the Rams up front against the Cardinals offensive line, they just dominated that game. The Cardinals had no chance to block. So I would definitely need Murray to take the Cardinals. Like if it's Hundley and the line's not absurd, like 14 or something, then I'd probably be on the Rams, but I don't think I'm betting this game. So we have a couple questions. Fields Gerald, I don't know if I'm saying that right. MGM and William Hill has Bears +7. Can you clarify why? that was the line before the Monday night game. That's what the advanced spread on the game was. It was Bears +7. But after the Vikings lost, they're probably not going to play their starters. So the line has changed out like everywhere else. But if you can get Bears +7, I would definitely bet that right away. MGM, it's I don't know if there's an app for that, but like that's obviously in Vegas. So if you're in Vegas and you can get Bears +7, I would do that. If I were in Vegas, I would do that. And then we have another question from Christian. Says he asks if the Steelers make the playoffs, will Tomlin be coach of the year? I think he will be. It could be Kyle Shanahan though. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it would come down to Tomlin, Harbaugh, and Kyle Shanahan. There's a really good case for Tomlin, though. I think he has the best case because if he gets Duck Hodges to the playoffs as his starting quarterback, like that's incredible. So we'll see what happens, but I would give it to Tomlin.
Yeah, right now I think Tomlin needs to get to the playoffs though. Like, so if he does, then it'll be Tomlin. If not, I think it'll be Shanahan. But I think Harbaugh there's definitely a good case for him. Field says MGM has Arizona +7.5. I don't even know if I'd bet either side there. I just don't know if Murray's going to play. So I would just wait. All right, next game is the Raiders at the Broncos. This is the final 4:00 game. The Broncos open up -4.5. The Sharps had bet this down. It is now -3 in almost every sports book. So who do you like in this game?
This is a game that I'm like not picking until I know some more about it. Like I never do this. I've not done this all season, but this is going to be like a last minute decision for me because the Raiders, if they're still alive in the playoff hunt, then I think I would probably take them. If they're not, I don't know if they're going to show up and want to really beat the Broncos that badly. So I'm not sure I would take them. I think the Broncos are going to want to win. They're probably still a little pissed off that at the beginning of the season they had a couple of games that really were decided by one possession that they could have won, but some bad officiating kind of cost them there. So I think they're going to be mad about that. Drew Lock has played well. The Oakland secondary is really banged up and really thin. So if they're not playing for a playoff spot, I don't think they're going to have the motivation needed to take down the Broncos because I think the Broncos are better than the record says they are. So right now I am leaning on the Broncos, but in the event that the Raiders are somehow still alive, I would not want to bet this game. So I'm probably going to literally wait until like 4:00 on Sunday once I know what's happening and just try to get as good a line as I can on the Broncos.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, when the Colts need to win, right, for the Raiders to still be alive, I think. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. So if the Raiders know they're eliminated, they probably wouldn't try very hard. But we both think the Colts will win. So I think right now I would go with the Raiders. Usually when the spread moves like this, it just drops. I've noticed that some people like to go the other side. They're like, oh, Broncos -3 is a good value. But I've noticed over the years, just following this and doing some research in the offseason, that when the line drops like this in the sharp money, you just go with the sharp money, just go with the flow, even though you're getting a worse number because there's a good chance that they're the right side. Now, if this goes below 3, then I wouldn't bet this game because Vegas is not going to get middled. So one side is right, or it's either going to be Raiders. It's not going to be Broncos winning by 3. So I think either the Broncos win or the Raiders win, but it won't be it won't push or anything. So I would take the Raiders. I like that Hunter Renfro's back. I think that's a big deal. Actually, his absence kind of coincided with their downfall in December. Just not having him was a big deal, and now he's back. But there are a lot of injury question marks in this game. The Broncos were missing 3 offensive linemen last week, which is I plan to actually go with Drew Lock in my fantasy championship. Then I went to Daniel Jones because they're missing so many offensive linemen. And then the Raiders, they were missing Richie Incognito last week, who's a very good blocker for them. So I really want to see what the injury report looks like. But I'll probably be on the Raiders, but I think you're right in saying that it's best to wait until 4:00 or, at least, the game might be decided, so you could probably wait till like 3 o'clock even. But you have to wait to see what happens in that Colts game first.
Yeah, definitely, because otherwise you may just end up betting on a side that's like completely unmotivated, or betting against the side that's just super motivated and like, hey, we're about to possibly make the playoffs in the most ridiculous fashion we've ever seen. So I do think this game will be a good one to bet on. It's just a matter of waiting it out to see what happens.
Yeah, it's true. Christian says, have the Broncos made a dramatic improvement? I always thought the Broncos were underrated the whole year. Like, remember week 2, they lost at the Bears because of some like a horrible call on roughing the passer, which allowed the Bears to win. And that happened 2 weeks later against the Jaguars at home. Like, I feel like the Broncos could have won both those games. And if they won both those games, they'd be 8-7 right now, even though Brandon Allen started a handful of games. Brandon Allen was terrible. So like if they won those games, and they should have, and then if they had Drew Lock going when Brandon Allen was starting, like this team could be like 9-6 right now even, and they could be in the playoff mix. And it's a shame that their season got derailed like that, but at least it's like some confidence going into next year. And Drew Lock has played well at times, not in the Kansas City game, obviously. But he's had offensive line issues in front of him. Like I said, they were missing 3 linemen last week, and yet he still won. So he's shown some glimmer of hope for the Broncos next year. And if they improve their offensive line, I think they can make the playoffs in 2020. All right, last game. This was flexed to Sunday night because it's for the NFC West championship. Maybe even for the NFC championship, because the Niners, if they win this game, they get the number 1 seed. So the line opened up pick 'em, and now it's 49ers -3. There's a lot of public action in the Niners, almost 80%. This is my favorite play of the week. This might be my pick of the month. So I'm curious to see if we're on the same side.
I am like very torn on this game. So if we are on different sides, you may be able to convince me to switch. I'm on the Niners at the moment, just because of the injuries that have taken place for the Seahawks. They're without their top 3 running backs. They lost their starting left tackle. I don't like how much this line has moved, because I really felt this was an evenly matched game. I also like the Niners from the revenge standpoint. The Seahawks already beat them once this year at home, kind of in a fluky overtime game. But that said, I'm not in love with how Jimmy G's been playing lately, so that like worries me a bit. And I don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball on the Seahawks as much as like the public thinks they will. But I'm on the 49ers right now. You can either instill confidence in me if this is your pick of the month, or convince me to change, depending on what your results are here.
I think this line is crazy. I think it's way off. I like the 49ers to be favored by 3 on the road. Like, I know Seattle just lost at home to Arizona for sure. But did you know, outside of last year's Seattle win over Arizona by only 3, Arizona was terrible last year. They only beat them by 3 at home. They hadn't beat Arizona at home since 2014. It's kind of like crazy. Like, Arizona always wins to Seattle. And so like, this is not like a weird result or anything. Like, this always happens. Seattle always crushes Arizona in Arizona. Arizona always comes up to Seattle and wins. So like, I don't put that much stock into that loss. It was the Chris Carson injury and also the Dwayne Brown injury. Like, those 2 are big deals for sure. And I'm not like going to gloss that over. But for the 49ers to be favored by 3, everyone's reacting to what Seattle just did. Like, they just lost to Arizona, sure. But what about what the 49ers have done recently? Like, their past 2 games have both been at home. They lost outright to Atlanta, and they almost lost outright to the Rams, a Rams team that was blown out by Dallas the week before. They couldn't stop Jared Goff in that game. Like, Goff was going crazy. And it came down to the final drive. And they kind of got lucky there at the end, I thought, and they could have easily lost that game. And if they had lost that game, they would not be favored by 3 on the road in Seattle. So for a team that's not playing well at all recently, since that New Orleans game, which they kind of lucked into that win too with some bad officiating, they haven't played well at all in that game. And for them to be favored by 3 on the road in Seattle, I think that's crazy. I made this line pick 'em. DVOA says DVOA only has these 2 teams 2 spots apart in the rankings, and they think that Seattle should be -1. and then you have all the action coming on the Niners. So I don't think the Niners deserve to be favored by 3 on the road. I don't think they deserve all this public money. And I think Seattle is I think they have a major motivational edge. Like I see what you're saying about revenge, but like the fact that everyone's writing them off, I think is a huge deal. Like I think they want to prove that they can still win the Super Bowl. I think, adding Marshawn Lynch will give him some confidence. I don't know how good Lynch will be, but the fact that he'll be on the field, well, I feel like will give him some sort of energy. And Russell Wilson coming off a loss is just amazing. Like Russell Wilson off a loss, he's 19-7 against the spread when not favored by 10 or more. Off a loss as an underdog, he's 7-3 against the spread in his career. And I think this will be a close game. Like I don't see the Niners, who are not playing well. They have injuries. They have injuries too on defense. I don't see the Niners winning this game by more than 3. Like Seattle always keeps games close. They'll be playing with extra motivation. And the fact that the spread has moved so much, I think Seattle is just great value. The only reason I may not make this my pick of the month is I want to see some of the injuries. Like I want to see Jadeveon Clowney back. I want to see Shaq Griffin come back. If those 2 guys are going to play, Seattle suddenly is going to be a lot more healthier, although they obviously won't have Brown or Carson. But their defense will be a lot healthier all of a sudden, and I think that'll help them beat Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not playing well. Like he's holding the ball way too long in the pocket, and if Clowney's on the field, like he's going to take a lot of sacks again. So I think Seattle wins outright, and depending on the injury report, I might make this my pick of the month.
Okay, I'll switch sides. I'll do the Seahawks here because I was not confident in Jimmy Garoppolo's performance more than anything else, and I kind of think at first when they lost Chris Carson, like I know Dwayne Brown losing him is massive as well, but Carson was kind of like the engine that he would always gain yards and fall forward, and give them 2nd and 3rd and short as opposed to 3rd and long in those situations. So I thought with him out, the Seahawks could be in worse shape. But I think Lynch, if he has something left in the tank, he should be fine. I mean, he did so well in Seattle for all those years. So I'll switch over to the Seahawks side. I don't know how much I'm going to bet on this. I'm not probably going to match you in this one. But you've given me enough confidence to probably go 2 units on the Seahawks here because I do think the line was off for sure.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I'm hoping for a 3.5. You could probably find like a somewhat reasonable 3.5, but yeah, like I said, I might make this my pick of the month depending on the injury report. Anthony's asking, have you ever thought about doing a live stream for the mock draft? Yeah, we'll definitely do a live stream with Charlie Campbell. That'll be a lot of fun to get feedback for sure. Like, I'm definitely looking forward to that, especially now that we can like live stream. Before we used to just record and upload, but now we can do it. All right, let's get to Super Bowl picks. So I don't know how you want to do this. I don't know if you had a lot or if you had a couple you liked or maybe one you liked, but I guess I'll read off some of the odds. So like on Bovada, the Ravens are 2.25 to 1, Patriots 5.5 to 1, 49ers 5.5 to 1, Saints 5.75 to 1, Chiefs 6.5 to 1, and then you have Packers 10 to 1. Those are the favorites. Do you like any of those?
Of those, the one I like the most is the Chiefs at 6.5 to 1. Just because I think they're playing their best football right now. Their defense is playing much better, and Patrick Mahomes, he can make any throw on the field. I feel like if the Chiefs has the 3 seed, they end up getting to take on like the Titans. They should beat them in a revenge game. Then they have to play the Patriots in Foxborough. So that game would be very difficult. But if they can get through the Patriots and they can get through the Ravens, I feel like they could possibly make it there. So I like the Chiefs just because they're playing their best at the right moment. And they've shown an ability to go on the road and win in Foxborough. I know that game was marred by bad officiating. I very much know that, as you can tell by my shirt. But yeah, I of that group, I like the Chiefs probably the most. That's the one that I'd consider at this point.
Yeah, me too. I like the Chiefs a lot. I picked them to win the Super Bowl to begin the year, and I think they can still do it. And I saw on Twitter today someone saying that the Chiefs are 8 to 1 somewhere. I was looking around for that. I couldn't find it. And Bookmaker has 6.2 to 1. 5 Dimes is 6 to 1. I'm going to keep looking for a better number. But if you can get 8 to 1, I think that's a big deal for the Chiefs. I think. I wrote in my power rankings, I said I can't really differentiate between the Ravens and the Chiefs. I know the Ravens have 2 more wins, but the Chiefs didn't have Tyreek Hill for a while. They didn't have Patrick Mahomes for a while. And their defense is a lot better now. So I think the teams are even. And, with the Ravens being 2.25 to 1 and the Chiefs being 6.5, potentially 8 to 1 somewhere, I think there's good value with the Chiefs. Yeah. All right. Next group of teams. It's kind of like the middle tier. We have Seattle 14 to 1, Vikings 30 to 1, Texans 35 to 1, Eagles 35 to 1, and the Bills 50 to 1. So do you like any of those teams?
Yeah, of those, I probably would lean on one of the longer shots. So either the Texans or the Eagles, if I had to pick one. The Eagles, we talked a little bit about this. If they can get healthy for the playoffs, they could end up being a good pick. So I think I kind of like the Eagles a bit as a long shot because they're probably going to end up playing they will play either the 49ers or the Seahawks in that first round if they make the playoffs. So I like getting them at 35 to 1 in that game. If they can knock off that first wild card team, I feel like the Eagles could compete with whoever the 1 seed is and whoever the 2 seed is. I think they'd have trouble against the Saints, but I can see the Eagles beating the Seahawks, 49ers, and Packers. So long as they could dodge the Saints, I could see Doug Peterson getting them to a Super Bowl if they're healthy.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually like them even more. I found a better number on Bookmaker. You can get them at 42.5 to 1, which is a pretty solid number, I think. I mentioned earlier that, this week they're not going to be healthy, but if they get to the playoffs, they'll probably have Lane Johnson, Deshaun Jackson, and Zach Ertz coming back. I think that's a big deal. Like, that's going to be a completely different team than this one. And we're going to be seeing the Eagles team that, we should have seen for most of the year. So 42.5 to 1, I think that's a great number. And I actually might bet that a little bit. That wouldn't go crazy with it. I actually have, my dad put a bet on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, and I kind of matched them earlier in the year. So I already have the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, but 42.5 to 1 sounds like great value to me, I think. Now, of course, they may not make the playoffs even, but that's the risk you're going to take. And I think that's the best value I see so far. But let's look at the long shots. So we have Cowboys 60 to 1, Titans 80 to 1, Steelers 100 to 1, and Raiders 350 to 1. So are you going to take any of these long shots?
I probably wouldn't take any of these. If I had to pick one long shot, I probably would go with the Titans. I just think that they have the best offense when Ryan Tannehill is playing well. They have a solid offensive line, nothing great, but they can kind of dominate teams on the ground with Derrick Henry. And if they can control the game from that aspect and they have a healthy Adoree Jackson on defense, I could see a way that they could make it somehow and be a Super Bowl long shot. But I wouldn't bet on that at this point, but I think that if I was going to take a long shot, they'd be the one.
Yeah, I agree. I think, out of these 4 teams, the Cowboys, they need the Eagles to even lose to the Giants to get into the playoffs. So the fact that Tennessee has better odds than the Cowboys, 80 to 1 compared to 60 to 1, I think it's good value. I just don't see the Titans making this run. Ideally, like if they were 100 to 1 or even 125 to 1, I might have some interest, but 80 to 1 is like not great value. It seems like okay. But yeah, I mean, Ryan Tannehill could get hot. Like, you never know. So I think crazier things have happened. But yeah, I think they're the best of the long shots. I don't think I would not take a Duck Hodges at 100 to 1. And the Raiders, even if like we knew they're going to make the playoffs, even like a 350 to 1 with, like, I don't trust Derek Carr to do anything in the playoffs. So
I might put like $1 on the Raiders at those odds, just so I have some ridiculous scenario to root for in Week 17. But I'm not betting like anything close to like a unit or even a half unit or a quarter unit on it. So,
you know what? I mean, if you do that and they get into the playoffs somehow, you definitely have some major hedging situations going on. So yeah, maybe I think that could be worth it, like $1 or so. Yeah, why not? You can $1 to win 350. Why not?
Yeah, no, I do that occasionally with golf and stuff. I'll just be like, I don't care about this. Let me just put $1 on some dude I've never heard of and see if he does well.
Nice. All right. Yeah, that's it. One last question. What was our predictions for Dolphins at Patriots? We both like the Patriots. So yeah. All right, that's it this week. Once again, Merry Christmas. And do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, I've got. I'm working on something that I'll hopefully have done later in the week over at Rigo's Rag. Just looking at 10 potential general manager candidates for the Redskins. It's not a certain thing that they're going to part with Bruce Allen, but there are some rumors that there may be some changes in the front office. So be looking at that. This also applies to other teams. If you're looking for general managers, I'll have 10 options there. So check that out and hit me up on Twitter at Jacob Camenker if you want to talk football. Always willing to do that.
Nice. Looking forward to reading that. That'd be interesting because it's kind of I have some ideas of GMs in the back of my head, but I don't think I can name like even 10 that I would consider. So I'm definitely going to look forward to that article. I'm at walterfootball.com. We're going to have updated picks throughout the week, fantasy rankings. If you crazy enough to have a league where you're playing week 17, but yeah, I think this is mostly for DFS. So good luck to anyone playing on DraftKings. And our updated 2020 mock draft will be up on Wednesday mornings. So check that out. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week, and we'll be talking the playoff matchups.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you then.
All right, bye.